Thanks, Vikas. Right. So, like Vikas said, the agenda is a packed agenda for an hour. We will take you through what SASE 3.0 is and how we look at SASE helping you to redefine your business. And then, of course, there will be question answers at the end, right? So, I'll take you to some through some of the initial things that we are seeing in the market and what we are looking at from a SASE 3.0, and then Brijesh will double click on some of the specifics regarding SASE 3.0, right? So that's a bit of the agenda from our speaker's perspective. And then, of course, like Vikas said, if you have any queries, feel free to put them in the chat box. We will answer them either on the fly or we'll let you know if we are covering them in the session. If not, we will pick these session questions and queries towards the end of the session where each one of you would have the ability to ask us the questions, right? So let's get going. Uh, to look at before when we start from a SASE perspective, right? I'm sure today everybody is either aware, is using, has looked at SASE in some manner or the other, right? I'm just going to take us back a few years to see why did this happen and why now the need of SASE 3.0, right? So a bit of the SASE journey, right? And where we really, all of us really embarked on the SASE journey was when unfortunately COVID hit us, right? And I was just going through my notes on the speaker notes of this slide and realized now this is like 5 years now, right? So we got hit in 2020 in March, so it's almost 5 years that we've put the COVID back. But what this brought a change for us, right? Initially was everybody working remotely. Now, of course, there are a lot of organizations where people want employees to come back to the office, but what remains is the hybrid workforce, right? So while yes, a lot of us have come back to the office, organizations want people to come back to the office, but that doesn't mean that we are working only from office, right? Hybrid workforce or hybrid working is given, right? That's something which we have accepted, and that's a way of life now. The other big thing that happened probably in the last 5 years now, right, was and which impacts this our conversation today, right, was the release of Chat GPT, right? So while Chat GPT was just probably one new thing that happened, what Chat GPT did for all of us, right, was give us the power of what AI ML could do, right? And that was something which probably is the biggest transformation that organizations are looking at today, right? How do I look at my digital transformation with AI ML, right? And of course, with any transformation, it's not that the transformation will only help you. It's unfortunately going to help the adversaries as well, right? So what happened with people working remotely, people working in hybrid mode, people working and with AI ML is that the attacks also got sophisticated and unique, right? Now, how do we make sure as an organization that yes, while we address these things, we accept these hybrid workforces, AI, ML, digital transformation, but then we also provide people a secure workspace to work, right? And that's how probably that's the journey of SASE that we are looking at, right, in the past. And sorry, coming back to that, that is how SASE has also evolved over the past 5 years, right? And that's what we want to look at in a bit view today, right? Now, double clicking on our remote work or hybrid work, right? So if you look at today, right, uh, there are there are people working from various locations, and of course our applications with our digital transformation, intent of SaaS and everything. Today, it's not a one is to many kind of connections that you have, right? It's essentially a many to many. And then what it really has meant for the IT team, right, for most of the organizations is I need connectivity to my apps. Now, as a user, I really don't care, or probably I also don't know where these apps are, right? For me, it doesn't matter whether the app is in my private data center of my organization, a cloud, it's a SaaS application. As far as I'm getting connectivity, whether I'm from home or I am from a coffee shop, I'm looking from my mobile, I'm from an airport, doesn't matter, right? I need connectivity, but I also need a similar experience, right? Whether it be from a security perspective or a connectivity perspective. I don't want to have a degraded experience just because I'm working from home or from an airport. I just want the same kind of experience that I have everywhere, right? And thus connectivity also became a very, very important part. Of course, security was a given. Now connectivity came into picture, right? And now then the challenge became that how do I make sure as an organization or as an IT team that all my users connect to all my applications, right? But in the best way where they don't feel a challenge on the experience part. But as an organization, I don't compromise on the security, right? And to most of the organizations that we talk, right, today, it is not about, oh, what is your security policy when you are remote versus what you are in the office? No, what is the security policy for Brijesh? And that's it, right? I don't care whether Brijesh is working from home, working from office, working from wherever he wants. The security policy is for Brijesh. Yes, I may give him differentiated access when he's at differentiated locations, but my security posture, security policy for Brijesh shouldn't be changing because I don't know where Brijesh is working from. And I shouldn't really be bothered where Brijesh is working from. As far as from a security perspective, he has exactly the same level of security, right? And thus, what we realized is SASE is a network and security transformation, right? Yes, security is a critical part, but often we've seen that the networking part of the transformation either gets, I wouldn't say overlooked, but a lot of times gets probably is an afterthought, right? That, okay, let me put my security first, but security has to come with the connectivity, right? And that's where what we did when we started on our SASE journey is that, okay, we have organizations which are global by nature. We are local by nature. We need connectivity any and everywhere. Like we said, you have hybrid users and organizations don't know where my users are. How do we make sure that we give them the best connectivity possible? How do we make sure that my user, immaterial of where they are, today they are sitting in Bangalore, tomorrow they may be sitting in Australia or maybe in Singapore or maybe in US, wherever they are. I have global users. How do I make sure that my connectivity is perfect, right? Now, we didn't want to go and reinvent the wheel of having a global connectivity. So we picked up the best partner that we could find and said that, okay, these people have already built a global connectivity. And so why don't we utilize the same, right? So our SASE solution is built on GCP's premium network, right? Of course, there's a backup and we can talk more on that in case if you need to understand more on how do we do resiliency and everything. But what it really means is when you are connected to Palo Alto SASE network, you also get to utilize GCP's premium network, right? So if you are connecting from India in Bangalore to maybe your own SaaS application in US or your end customer's application in US, we are not relying on pure play plain internet, right? Yes, internet is a part of it, and probably your home internet or office internet in the last mile and the first mile, but the mid mile will always be GCP's premium connector, right? So it improves the kind of user experience that your user has, right? The second part now comes to the security part of it, right? What do we do on a security part? And that is where we look at providing security on three primary aspects, right? So when you say, okay, what was Palo Alto's thought process when we put this SSE together, the SSE part of the SASE, right? We put it on under three different buckets, right? A, do we have a better platform? And the reason why we need a better platform or the thought process came is a platform and architecture, whatever you may call it, right, is something that we are going to build on, and that this is essentially what has allowed us to build to move from the initial SASE, let's call it 1.0 to 2.0, today 3.0, right? That what are the different things that we can build on these platforms, right? That is going to give the value and catch up with whatever new is happening at a business end, where your SASE doesn't become a laggard to your business, right? The middle part, of course, has to be an exceptional security efficacy. Security being a very, very prime focus of this. How do we make sure that security is at the center of it, right? And the third is, of course, coming to operational simplicity and visibility, right? That while all of this is there, how do we make sure that when you're operating this, you get to look at it in a very simple and get as much operational simplicity as possible, right? So we've done a couple of things that we come across from a platform perspective, right? So two things that I think are important for us and for most of the organizations that use one is we do not. So when we talk about SaaS and when you talk about traffic, right, your traffic could either be to public applications or to private applications, right? From our perspective, we do not. From a security perspective, we don't want to differentiate between how you treat public or private application. If I'm sitting at home, my traffic is my traffic. Whether my end destination is a public application like a SaaS or in an AWS or in my data center, why should a security stance be different for any of it, right? So we believe that a continuous trust verification and a continuous inspection of traffic should happen immaterial of where this traffic goes, right? So we treat all the traffic the same and thus give a better security aspect. And so we don't see that, oh, you're going to internet, so it's inherently more risky than your private applications. Yes, it may be, but doesn't mean that I should be treating that traffic differently, right? Second, and probably something which we do very uniquely, is providing dedicated egress IPs for our customers, right? So if you have a tenant on our Prisma Access SASE solution, you get a dedicated egress IP. What it really does is, from a practical purpose, if you are working with a third party who wants to whitelist your IPs, you don't need to give them a pool of IPs. You give them one IP, two IP, three IP, whatever, but these IPs are going to be dedicated to you. From for your perspective, what it means as a consumer is you don't face the problem of a noisy neighbor, right? Just because somebody else, another tenant who's using the same pool of IPs, either went rogue. Let's not believe that they got rogue, but they got compromised, and so they are misusing the set of IPs, which means, and because I as a ISP or I as a third party vendor do not different cannot know that from a pool of IP who is misusing this, I'm probably tended to look at, oh, this pool of IP is misbehaving, and so you may suffer from somebody else's misbehavior or compromise, right? So dedicated egress IPs are something which, again, and this is something we could do because this was done from as an architecture level or from a platform perspective, right? So these are a couple of things that we did from a platform perspective. From a security perspective, I think this is something where SASE, I would say probably SASE at the very beginning started with some of these features, right? You always did URL filtering or threat prevention, right? But then as we went along, right, we added Wildfire, which is our sandboxing technology. We added DNS security, which is something which probably not every vendor does as a part of the SASE. Then, of course, we added IoT and OT security to our SASE platform. And then, of course, the CASB part, right? Not in the same, probably, the features were not released in the same priority or in the same sequence, but this is what we cover today, right? The CASB, of course, covers our DLP and everything else, right? So whether it's email DLP or normal DLP, web CASB, API integration, everything gets covered under our CASB platform, right? Now, interestingly, what we've done is this solution or these features that you look at, right? The security and the threat intelligence you look at, this is also common across our larger NetSec platform, right? So whether you buy a firewall from us, or whether you buy a SASE solution from us, or whether you buy a virtual firewall, a container firewall, the security at the back is remains the same, right? And this is essentially what you invest in when you're looking at a SASE or a security solution. That does Palo Alto have the ability to give you the best security efficacy, right? So that remains the same for us, immaterial of whatever network security solutions that you are looking to consume from Palo Alto. The last part, right, is like I said, is our visibility and how do I manage it, right? Because that's the other part. You're going to buy a solution once, whatever solution that you buy, but you're going to manage it over the next 3, 5, 10 years, right? And so what we've done is we've also made sure that, like our security is a common thread across our network security, the Strata Cloud Manager is our common management platform across our network security platform, right? So whether you have a firewall from us, whether you have a SASE from us, whether you manage physical or virtual firewalls, you can basically manage the entire network security through the same cloud manager. Now, apart from being a single pane of glass for management, of course, we've also added a lot of features from an analytics perspective, from an AI ML perspective. Like I said, the idea is, as a operations person, how do I make your life easier, right? And so we've put in a lot of efforts on the AI powered zero trust management and operations, and we'll talk a bit more on it, on how this has again evolved over a period of time, right? So this is just to set the stage on where we were, where we have come, and what is the platform on which this SASE 3.0 is based, right? Just to give you a bit of view on what was the thought process on the SASE platform, because some of you may not be aware of some of the background to this, the way SASE platform has been set up, right? I'll now hand over this to Brijesh, who will take you through some of these new things that have happened in on our SASE platform and why we call it the SASE 3.0, right? So Brijesh, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Anish, for walking us through the initial part. And uh, people on online, I can see a few questions coming in. Please keep that coming in. We will answer as much as possible. I think one of the questions was, is it an agent-based or an agentless solution? Very good question. We can support any kind of user now, right? And I'll tell you why that is. We do have agent-based and agentless solutions. So summarizing what Anish spoke about right now, right? So our when you talk about SASE, you are looking at a solid, robust platform which can deliver network and network security at scale, right? Which Anish established that we deliver this out of GCP's robust backbone. We have locations all across the globe with redundancies, and we can scale at the power of cloud, right? In terms of security efficacy, irrespective of whether it is private applications or public applications or SaaS, we provide the same level of visibility, inspection, and security enforcement, irrespective of what kind of application it is, right? And we provide all the advanced bells and whistles in terms of security, like data security, DLP, CASB, API and inline CASB, and all these functions, apart from the basic security functions like DNS security, URL filtering, so on and so forth, right? Now, while providing all this, like Anish mentioned, we make sure that everything and anything that we provide as a solution, as a platform, from a network security standpoint, right from SSE, from SASE, from SD-WAN, to the next generation firewalls and firewalls in cloud, all of this is managed from a single window of management, which is the Strata Cloud Manager, what Anish was talking about, right? And what I'll be doing is I'll probably be shifting between screens right now. I hope I don't make people dizzy doing that. The intention is to just show you a glimpse of what we are talking about also in real time, right? So that you know what, you get to see what we're talking about. So this is the single window of management, visibility, operations for the entire NetSec landscape that an enterprise would need, right? Right from Prisma Access, which is your SASE, the next generation firewalls. You can see that there is SD-WAN here, there will be firewall setups here, right? So everything managed from a single entity. And like someone had asked, predominantly in terms of the mode of connect from the user side, there are two predominant modes. One is the agent in the endpoint, which helps the end user to hook up to our cloud directly. You can also hook up an entire branch or an office to our cloud using what is known as remote networks, right? So we have both the abilities. Now, we will slowly shift gears into what is happening next, right? While SASE has been there for a while now, what I want to spend time on for the next 20 odd minutes is discussing where are we going with this, right? So when Anish started off, he started off talking about how dynamic things have become, right? Including adoption of SaaS, adoption of AI tools and stuff like that. So with all this, advancements that are happening, the one common factor that we are seeing is that, excuse me, the most common denominator for all these kind of access is the browser, right? So today in your day job or in your day-to-day work life, 99% of the time, you will be, basically uh, working on a browser, right? Now, when you look at attacks these days, the way things are evolving, uh, it is more and more centered around how to exploit the browser itself, right? So, like I mentioned, 80 to 100% of, depending on what industry you're in, of course, of a worker's life is spent on the browser. But in most cases than not, browsers are vulnerable, because of cookie hijacking and extension hacking and stuff like that, right? So uh, as simple as getting a vulnerable extension sabotaged and getting a malicious software code injected into an extension. You're able to sabotage an extension which can then be used to steal cookies, session cookies, passwords, save passwords, etc. Right? So the browser is the productivity hub, but the browsers are vulnerable as well. Similarly, SaaS and Gen AI usage, right, has manifold increase. Now, uh, are organizations having the level of control that they want to have, the level of visibility that they want to have from a SaaS and AI perspective specifically? The answer is no, right? And the other risk factor, right, when it comes to safeguarding any enterprise's crown jewels is the access of these applications by third-party users from third-party devices, right? Now, I, as a Palo Alto employee, I can just use my phone, my personal laptop to try to access an enterprise application which I am allowed access to, right, from a BYOD. Is that considered risk? Yes, it is, right? Because it's my personal device, and uh, the company wouldn't know what malicious software I have in my what is the security posture of my endpoint, right? So it is important to make sure that we provide secure and governed access of enterprise SaaS and private applications from any third party, be it BYOD, be it contractor, be it partner, any kind of devices, right? So the Prisma Access browser is basically a browser. It's nothing more or less than that, right? It is a browser that I'm talking about that is provided to you by Palo Alto, which helps any user access any application from any device, right, or any location, right? Now, how does that happen, and what is this browser? The Prisma Access browser is a Chromium-based browser, just like your Google Chrome or your Edge, right? So it's a standard Chromium-based browser. The user interface is extremely native to Chrome. There is no change in user behavior or experience when you try to access this new browser. there is no admin privileges required to install this browser, right? And this browser is installable on laptops, desktops, phones, tablets, what have you, right? iOS, Android, etc., etc. Now, with this Prisma Access browser, what we intend to achieve is a point of visibility, enforcement, and control at a browser level, right? And that gives us the ability to granularly look at, what is the user trying to access in terms of my applications that the user is trying to access, and what is the level of access that I want to give that user, right? Even if that user is not coming from a managed device, even if that user is logging in from some village from his grandmother's laptop, right? So with the enterprise browser, one, we look at solving security and data protection for unmanaged devices, or any device for that matter, accessing web applications, right? So when I say security, it includes both, right? Data security, which means if the user is accessing any sensitive data, I want to apply controls which could include and not limited to data masking, for example, right? I want the user to access my Salesforce, but I don't want the user to see my credit card number listed there. I want my HR administrator or my partner who works with my HR team, the headhunter team, who's an outsider contractor team who works with my HR team. I want them to access my HRMS, but I don't want them to see PII data. I don't want them to, download any files from my HRMS, right? So those kind of data controls I can enforce, right? Also, browser security is an extremely important factor, right? Because now the browser itself, like I mentioned, has become a attack surface. So how secure can the browser itself be made, right? So by incorporating things like web Bluetooth API, web file API, web USB API, etc., etc., and where we control, minimize, or nullify the interaction of the browser with the local machine itself, right? Is one part of it, right? How do you block extensions, for example, right? Malicious extensions, third-party extensions. How do we completely block or make it domain specific or make it user specific, right? So those kind of controls from a browser security standpoint is what I intend to say when I talk about security and data protection. The second aspect is unified management. So single window of management. There is, it's literally click and adopt. There is nothing much to learn or in terms of adoption, right? It's a single window of management which I showed you earlier, and I will show you further as well. An exceptional admin and user experience, right? So the user has no learning cycles to go through to start adopting the Prisma Access browser. Today, the user is using Chrome. You you install the Prisma Access browser. The user just seamlessly moves on to the Prisma Access browser. Only change that the user might perceive is the icon of the browser, right? Which probably in a day or two will get familiar as well, right? Um, so uh, the Prisma Access browser provides you a secure environment, both on the endpoint. So it provides an isolated browsing environment within any endpoint and ensures data security for your enterprise applications that are being accessed from that device. And it provides a just-in-time workspace for any user. So let's say you're rolling out a project, right? And you have 10 contractor employees coming on board tomorrow. Now, instead of you sitting and waiting for laptops to be provided and so on and so forth, all the logistics, the only thing the user needs is just a browser, right? Enable the user with the browser. The user logs in with his or her username uh, and has access only to the specific applications through that browser. Now, these applications could be SaaS, internet-based, or even private applications, right? Without the need for you to have a VPN agent in the third-party endpoint, right? And excuse me, what are the use cases that the browser helps you achieve? Is one, enable safe access of your enterprise applications and SaaS by third parties or your contractors, right? Use when there is an M&A happening in your company, right? When there are field workers who are going on the field for data collection or whatever job they would do, right? VDI. If you're an organization who's having a big footprint of VDI, you're looking to reduce the compute cost of VDI. Browser might be the answer for that, right? BYOD is another big use case which the browser helps to solve for, and there it enables any employee to access any enterprise applications safely without the risk of data leakage to the employee's personal device, or vice versa, any data, risk of um, security threats from the infected endpoint to the application grounds well, right? The third bucket could be anything, right? Because, like I said, today the browser is the single common denominator for any application that we access. The use cases that the browser can help solve could be unlimited, right? One of the use cases that is listed here on the third bucket that I can talk about is enabling Gen AI access, right? Gen AI is something that every organization is looking at today, right? Because every employee today uses some or the other productivity tool in terms of Gen AI, right? ChatGPT being the most abused example I know, but there are 100,000 others, right? So uh, at the browser level, you'd be able to identify that, okay, uh, user X is trying to access a Gen AI application just based on what he's trying to browse, and then apply controls right at the browser level itself. And the most important aspect of this is when you are looking to have security controls at a network level, right? It is very important to have visibility, which translates to decryption, right? Now, unless you decrypt at a network level, you will not get the visibility, and hence you will not be able to do the required security checks and balances. With the browser, you don't need to decrypt traffic, right? So, for example, end-to-end encrypted application, WhatsApp, for example, right? Today, there is no way that you'd be able to look at a web WhatsApp and say that, okay, I want to block this sensitive data from being posted on WhatsApp, or this sensitive file being sent on WhatsApp, right? Because once the traffic is sent from the device, you have no visibility of what is being sent through WhatsApp. But with the browser, as and when the user types in WhatsApp or sends a file in WhatsApp, you can just hold it right there, even before it hits the network, right? So that is undecryptable traffic support today, right? And like I said, it is multiple such use cases that you can start thinking of now, right? So I'll just give you a quick view of what this browser is. So as you see here, I've just shifted screens now. This is a Prisma Access browser window, right? Now, this, like I mentioned, excuse me, is a uh, enterprise managed browser. The first thing that you will want to know is when it is an unmanaged device, how do I know if it is a compliant or a secure or what kind of device is it? So we do have posture checks, right? Where here you can see just a few of the aspects that are being checked for, right? But we can check, we have posture checks from an endpoint standpoint with multiple such attributes. Is the endpoint having endpoint security? What kind of endpoint security does it have? Is it updated to the latest version? What operating system does it have? Uh, it should belong to this list of serial numbers, for example, right? So it should be managed by an MDM software, and this should be the MDM software tenant that it should be managed with, right? It should have, like you see here, an active screen lock, for example, right? So these are posture checks that you can do for any device, right? It need not be a managed device. It need not be a device which has a VPN agent. Just this browser from, like I said, my grandmother's laptop in my village I try to access, I will get all the details of the device that from where the access is coming from. So that is where the zero trust fabric starts from, right at the end point. And the continuous inspection, someone had a question earlier on chat, the continuous posture check and continuous inspection, similar to what was spoken earlier by Anish, continues in this environment as well, right? So similarly, if I go to one of these applications, let's say salesforce.com here, um, now, so one is I can enforce things like I cannot log into any other domain other than my official domain, right? So if I just say, you can see that I am not allowed to log in here, right? That is because it has to log into my Evereast account, right? So I'll probably take a bit here and there, while we wait for some of the applications to load. But what I want to show is now, for example, I've logged into my Salesforce. I'd mentioned earlier, right? I want my partner to log into my Salesforce application and access some of the details that he or she would access. I don't want them to see sensitive information like credit card, for example, right? So you see here that the credit card information is masked. And this masking also is specific to the number of digits that you want to mask or not, right? So similarly, you can have print controls, you can have screen sharing controls, right? So you can have watermarking, for example. So if I go to Office 365, so if you see here, there is watermarking on my screen. So even if someone comes and takes a picture of my screen, I will know that this screenshot or this picture has gone from this specific user's browser at this particular uh, time of the day, right? So similarly, there are multiple other uh, uh, you know uh, controls that you can have, right? So you can make sure that you block certain types of websites. For example, if I go to ChatGPT, I can define it as a restricted website and just block it, right? I can enforce that your Office login should happen only from the browser, but not from elsewhere, right? So this is, as far as the browser is concerned, a very, very quick demo of that. Now, while we go with SASE and we look at the browser and the endpoint and the application, it is important for us to get visibility also in terms of what is the user experience, right? And when a user comes and tells you that, no, I'm not able to access my application, the application is not accessible at all, or I'm finding it slow, right? You need to know where the problem is, right? As you see the screen, there could be, at least 40 different points where there could be a problem, right? With ADEM, right, which is our digital experience management tool, you would be able to both at a user level or at a network level uh, be able to identify segment wise where the problem is. Is the problem with the user? Is the problem with the local LAN network? Is the problem with the WAN network? Is the problem with the internet? Or is the problem at the application side? And at the application side, where is the problem, right? So you get a segment wise visibility of what the problem is. ADEM gives you what is known as self service, which is it gives without the user having to go to the IT administrator for issues. If there are any factors within the laptop that is causing some of the issues, the ADEM can provide a self-service pop-up to that specific user's machine saying, Mr. User, your CPU utilization is 99%, right? You will find it difficult accessing applications. Or, Mr. User, you're not sitting in an optimal zone for Wi-Fi, so your application access might be hindered, right? So such self-serve pop-ups can be given. Now, when we spoke about the browser earlier, the ADEM plays a part there also by giving what is known as RUM. When I say RUM, don't get ideas, it is real user monitoring, right? Here, what I'm talking about is looking at, let's say, Brijesh as a user accessing Salesforce or ServiceNow is coming and complaining that I'm not able to access, right? With the real user metric, you'd be able to actually see that the user went to ServiceNow, logged in, went to the service dashboard, everything is fine, right? It is only when you try to create a service request that the page is failing, right? And this is data that we are able to get from the browser itself, right? And that helps the administrator get a more granular view of what the problem is and how to solve for it, right? So that is real user monitoring. And the third and final topic that I'd want to walk you through for the next couple of minutes is AI access security, right? Anish, when he started, one of the things that he mentioned was the proliferation of AI access or AI, Gen AI tools, right? ChatGPT and Grammarly and this and that, right? While it is very helpful, it becomes a major cause of concern for a lot of organizations, because now with all this Gen AI tools, you don't know how much of your proprietary data is going into these AI tools, and it is being learned and shared across all these platforms, right? So there are multitudes of AI tools which come under multiple use cases, right? Right from coding assistants to speech assistants to productivity assistant to writing assistant. There's so many Gen AI tools now, and with the use of every AI tool, while productivity increases, the risk of data leakage is all the more enhanced, right? And is the current security tooling enough to manage this? Okay, can I go and say that, yeah, I have URL filtering capability, right? I'll be able to block AI URLs. Is that enough? No. I have CASB. I can just go ahead and block, specific, applications or categories. Is that enough? No. Why? Because AI as a application type is a different animal on the whole. There are totally different attributes and parameters based on which we are able to identify these applications, right? So what we have come up with is called as AI access. Here we are able to one identify more than 1,200 odd AI applications, not just identify them, but we are able to classify them into different use cases, 10, 12 different use cases based on what these AI applications do, and uh, give a risk score for each of these applications based on the AI attributes of these applications, right? And I'll talk about that in just a second. And based on this risk score, then you will be able to write a more granular policy and enforce data protection policies and security policies based on the risk score that you already are now aware of, thanks to the AI Access platform, right? And uh, to to give you a quick glimpse of what AI Access security will be, so if you can see my screen here, you can see that this honeycomb kind of a view gives you a view of 65 plus Gen AI applications that are in use. And the most popular use cases are listed here, right? Writing assistant, conversational assistant, image editor, and coding assistant. And there are other use cases for which there are other applications identified also. In this, there are 736 threats detected and six sensitive data that is being detected, right? You can go into each of these applications and you can see each of these use cases. Writing assistant, for example, you can see how many applications are there. In that, how many are unsanctioned applications, how many are tolerated applications, how many are sanctioned applications. These are tags that you can give, right? And based on these tags, you can write policies saying for a unsanctioned Gen AI app, I don't want to allow any access, right? Or I want to allow access for file download only, no upload, whatever is the kind of policies that you want to have. And just with this tag, any application that falls under this category is automatically subject to that policy, right? Now, for example, if I just take one of these tools, for example, Grammarly, if I take,
Brajesh, I'm
you
I'm so sorry to intervene. It's 11:52. You might want to wrap up in a couple of minutes
in
because
a
we have
minute,
no time for Q&A.
in a minute, I'm done, because, and thanks for the time check.
Sure.
So I was saying the attributes, right? So if you see here, when you look at any CASB tool, you will see attributes related to the SaaS application itself. While we do have all of that, we also look at a lot of Gen AI attributes specifically, right? To classify within the Gen AI itself, we are able to classify what kind of application it is, what is the risk of it, and what is the exposure of it, and so on and so forth, right? And you can see that there are security and privacy and compliance attributes that we're looking at, basis which we come up with a risk score for that specific application, right? Whether it is high, medium, or low, right? And we can look at the number of users, number of, what is the data transfer that is happening, any Prisma Access browser events that are coming up, and things like that, right? So pretty much the demo that I wanted to quickly run you by. And I will stop at that.